Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something kind of wild and honestly deeply revealing about human behavior. We're looking at our own subconscious financial hypocrisy. We're going to break down a really powerful story called The Economics of Empathy, a story of 10 and 200 rupees. And honestly, by the end of this, you might just find yourself completely rethinking your very next transaction. So, why do we haggle with the poor? I mean, really let that sink in for a second. It's a habit that is just so deeply ingrained in our daily lives, right? Most of us do it without even a second thought. But what is the actual psychology behind it? To figure this out, we're going to walk through a story today. It's a perfectly mirrored sequence of events that totally exposes the irony of our transactional empathy. Section 1. The story of a rich woman. Setting the scene. Okay, so picture this. Our main character lives a life of serious comfort. She owns this massive, beautiful bungalow. She drives around town in a big, luxurious car. And, she doesn't bat an eye at heading into those expensive, sprawling shopping malls just to pick up everyday household items. We're establishing right out of the gate here that she is very blessed with wealth. She absolutely does not have a shortage of resources. So on one of these routine shopping trips, after completely filling her car with all kinds of mall purchases, she realizes something, super annoying, but universally relatable, right? She forgot to buy eggs. And instead of turning the car around and navigating that giant mall all over again, because who wants to do that, she spots an elderly man selling eggs from a tiny, modest street cart. So she pulls her big car over and steps out to make a really quick purchase. Section 2. Haggling for 10 rupees with the poor. The street cart transaction. She walks up to the old man. He lets her know the eggs are 5 rupees each and she needs 10 of them. Doing the quick math in our heads, the total comes to exactly 50 rupees. Now think about this in the grand scheme of her lifestyle. The bungalow, the massive shopping sprees. 50 rupees is practically invisible to her. It is a completely inconsequential amount of money. But instead of just handing over a 50 rupee note and being on her way, what does she do? She immediately starts negotiating. She looks right at this elderly vendor and insists she's only going to pay 40 rupees. She is actively choosing to stand there and haggle, just to save a mere 10 rupees. And this is exactly where we see the human cost of this interaction. The vendor looks at her and he says, "Madam, I won't have much profit left at that price." See, for the wealthy woman, 10 rupees is literally nothing. But for this man, standing out there in the blazing heat, that 10 rupees represents his actual livelihood. It's his microscopic profit margin for the whole transaction. He tries to find some sort of middle ground, pleading for 45 rupees, just asking for a tiny 5 rupee concession. But nope, she stands absolutely firm. Recognizing that he desperately needs this sale just to survive, the old man surrenders. He accepts the 40 rupees. She grabs her eggs, gets back into her giant car, and drives home, having successfully won her 10 rupees. Section 3. Extravagance in a big restaurant. A shift in scenery. All right, so back at her fancy bungalow, her phone rings. It's a friend inviting her out for a meal. She takes that same car back out, but this time she definitely isn't stopping at a street cart. She heads straight to a large, fancy restaurant to meet her friend. Notice how the environment instantly shifts here, from the dusty, hot street corner to a cool, air-conditioned, upscale dining room. After they finish their meal, the check comes. The bill arrives, and it's for 1,800 rupees. Now, that's a pretty hefty amount, right? Significantly larger than that 50 rupees she scoffed at just a few hours earlier. But because she's well off, this number doesn't faze her in the absolute slightest. To settle up, she casually opens her purse, pulls out a crisp 2,000 rupee note, and hands it directly over to the restaurant manager. It's a totally seamless, thoughtless transaction for her. But there's a slight hiccup. The manager checks his register and realizes, he doesn't have the exact change. Her response? Completely effortless. She just waves it off and says, "If you don't have 200 rupees change, just keep it." She says it so casually, without even a fraction of a second's hesitation. She just dismisses the money entirely. 200 rupees. She voluntarily just walked away from 200 rupees. She gave it away as a completely unearned tip to a well-paid manager, simply for the sake of her own convenience. She didn't fight for it, she didn't negotiate, she didn't even blink. She just gave it away. Section 4. The difference between 10 and 200 rupees. Analyzing the hypocrisy. Okay, so here is the cognitive dissonance in full glaring effect. On one hand, we have her arguing relentlessly to save a measly 10 rupees from an elderly street vendor who genuinely relies on every single coin to survive. And then, on the exact same day, just a couple of hours later, she's casually throwing away 200 rupees, which is 20 times that amount, to a restaurant manager who absolutely doesn't need it. It's a striking reflection of a deeply flawed way we value money purely depending on the environment we happen to be in. So, what's the big takeaway here? We have this really terrible habit of haggling precisely in the places where money is desperately needed, while simultaneously engaging in extravagant spending where it is completely unnecessary. This whole story highlights the absolute irony of our transactional empathy. It's like we subconsciously respect the wealth and the structure of a fancy restaurant, but we somehow feel entitled to squeeze every last penny out of a vulnerable street vendor. It turns out our environment totally dictates our empathy. Section 5. The lesson from the story. What we can learn. The core message we're pulling from this explainer is beautifully simple. If you have been blessed with wealth, please do not haggle with the poor. If you are lucky enough to not have to worry about your next meal, don't use your leverage to undercut those who do. Because the money that might mean absolutely nothing to you could literally mean everything to them. It's all about being fully conscious of where your money actually makes an impact. And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. But before we go, I want to leave you with a lingering question to really chew on. Do you give where it is truly needed? Seriously, take a look at your own recent transactions. Where are you fighting tooth and nail for pennies, and where are you just throwing away dollars? Are you paying for the actual value of an item, or are you just paying for the environment it's sold in? Thank you so much for joining me to break this all down today. And hey, keep questioning the why behind your everyday choices.